The following stories contain content that may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of Reality-Worse-Than-Nightmares. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this is a show that consists of stories found on the subreddit letsnotmeet, as well as true creepy stories from normal people just like you. There will also be the occasional work of fiction, such as a creepypasta story, or something from the subreddit No Sleep. If you have a story that you would like to submit, please send it to realityworsethanightmares@gmail.com. That's realityworsethanightmares@gmail.com. You can also follow on Twitter at realnightmares with a Z. There's a spelling in the description if you need it. If you like scary stories and you can't seem to get enough, please check out my other videos by clicking on the info tab in the top right corner of your screen. You should also check out the stories from my friends over at Manor. You can find them on YouTube, or you can visit manorhouseshow.com to check out all of their great content. That's manorhouseshow.com. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Tonight's episode of Reality Worse Than Nightmares will consist of 3 tales about pedophiles, kidnappers, and, well, bad relationship choices. I hope you enjoy the stories, and if you do, please like, share, and subscribe. Now relax and see why sometimes reality is worse than nightmares. 3 pedophiles during my childhood. I lived nearly all my life in the same city, in an old-fashioned country of Eastern Europe. I grew up with my grandparents, and in an apartment on the final floor, which was the 4th. My first creepy encounter was when I was 7, coming back from school. I entered the building, and staring at the mailboxes was a person I have never seen before. The only person who would do that was the mailman, but I didn't think much of it. Even so, I greeted the man because my environment had taught me to be friendly and polite, and proceeded to go up the stairs. When I reached the 3rd floor, the man calls out to me and stops me, seeming all frustrated, so I give him my attention. What comes next is shocking. He looks at me while sitting on the lower stairs and grabs my hand, placing it on his penis. I remember it even today. After over 10 years, the look on his face as he made me touch it. I had nothing to say. I had no idea what was going on, but I was too shocked to do anything. After what seems like an eternity, he ejaculates and lets go of his grip and tells me not to tell anyone about this, then just leaves. Of course, I go home crying and tell my grandmother about it, which she then warns all the other families about, telling them to be on the lookout. She teaches me to scream or knock on the neighbors' doors if I feel threatened again. I never saw him again after that. My innocence was spoiled, and by that encounter I was matured too early. 3 years later, on the same way home, I bring a friend over. On our way up, we get caught up by a man who tells us a random family name and asks us if we know where these supposed people live. I don't feel threatened, but his upcoming actions trigger my fear levels. He gives me and my friend pictures from porn magazines, saying that he has to mail these to the so-called family. My friend is all intrigued and giggling over it, but I'm completely creeped out. Then he proceeds to unzip his pants, and by this time I had already noticed and pulled my friend by the wrist, demanding her to come up with me, while still trying not to act suspicious. My friend is confused, and I'm scared, covered in questions by her. I look down to see if he had left, and I see him, jerking his penis while looking back at me in the most horrifying grin. I tell my grandmother again, and I show her the paper I had received from the stranger. My dad arrives right after, and I explain to him the situation, and he tells me he saw the man acting all unsuspicious in the building. He remembered his face and left to look for him, with no luck. All I can say is, the previous experience from when I was 7 had taught me that I should get the hell out of there. After another 3 more years in my rebellious stage, going around the city, far from home, all by myself, in a park 2 hours away from home, I'm politely asked by an old man to help him up some stairs, as he's being very nice and talkative to me, asking whether I'm alone and related questions. Of course, I was naive and answered sincerely, and that led him to take advantage of the situation. He took me to a secluded area and made me look down a cliff, saying,
"Is it not beautiful, the view?"
And I replied to his question, my back facing him. I'm paralyzed when I hear a familiar sound. His zipper. I know very well what was going to happen, and in that moment I had no escape. I pretend right away that I see my mother in the corner of my eye, and I shout at her while pushing the man from my way and run the hell out of there. In that very moment, I had the luck to take a glimpse at his penis. It was horrid. I know this sounds pathetic, but all I can say is, thanks to the first guy, I knew how to defend myself twice from far worse situations. Who knows what might have happened the third time? Creepy 3 pedophiles, thank God we never met again. P.S. The girl who was my friend and laughed at the torn porno magazines while I was scared of them ended up being a prostitute and killed in a gang rape. Potential abductor. Let's not meet again. This is a memory that I have tried to repress, but for some reason can't ever seem to get rid of. I was 4 years old and I was at a department store with my dad. He was looking for new clothes while I giggled and hid from him in the clothing racks, a favorite game of mine. A few minutes passed and I had managed to get further away from him to the point where he called out to me. I innocently giggled and continued to hide, further irritating him. He eventually found my hiding spot and pulled me out of the clothing rack and lectured me. I distinctly remember him saying,
"Do not hide from me when I call for you. There are a lot of bad people in the world and someone could take you."
Not even a moment later, a creepy woman wearing grungy clothes came out of nowhere and tried to stroke my hair and told me,
"Not all people are bad, sweetie."
In one swift motion, my father picked me up and told the woman not to go near me or he would alert security. He carried me away and we left the store. I thought that would be the end of the strange encounter, but it wasn't. Later that night, I remember sleeping in my bed facing my door, which I always keep open. In the middle of the night, I felt 3 hefty taps on my left shoulder. Thinking it was my mom or dad, I tiredly turned around and rubbed my eyes to find a large shadow of a person standing over my bed. I immediately knew this person was not my mom or dad. I screamed at the top of my lungs and ran down the hallway to their room. Sure enough, they were both in bed, just then awakening to the sounds of my screams. I yanked my dad's hand and told him there was someone in my room. My dad followed me back to my room while my mom started to dial the police. As we entered the room, we both quickly noticed that my bedroom window was open and the screen had been busted out. I never slept with my window open or even cracked. My dad's face turned white as a ghost. He picked me up and carried me back into my parents' room while him and my mom talked to the police, reporting a break-in. They never figured out who broke in, but my dad had always suspected it was the creepy woman from the store. She could have possibly followed us home and planned to abduct me from my room. It still sends shivers down my spine to this day. I can no longer go to sleep unless my blinds are fully shut and my windows are locked. To the creepy woman who told me not all people are bad, let's never meet again. My best friend's ex. This event requires a bit of a backstory. In early 2014, my best friend Lily met a guy named Nathan at a club through one of her friends from college. She and Nathan instantly hit it off and were officially dating within a few weeks. It only took a few months for Lily to fall head over heels for this guy. Before long, she was even telling me that she thought he was the one. I was happy for her experiencing some good old college romance. It eventually led to her losing her virginity to this guy. I really had no opinions on the guy, aside from what I heard from Lily. From what I heard at first, he sounded like a nice guy who just had a lot of bad stuff happen to him. This guy had some serious baggage. He had a poor background and lived with his grandmother. I can't remember if he ever told Lily about his parents or not. He had a 3-year-old son named Isaac, whose mother was a drug addict. Lily was in love with Nathan so much that she was willing to stick with him and help him with some of the drama. In spite of hearing so much about him, I only met him twice. Once when he was picking Lily up from work, we work at the same place, and second when... I'll get to that. However, things first went downhill when Nathan broke up with Lily in September. He had recently become a rookie police officer and was moving to another city for more training. He said he would come back for her. Still, Lily was devastated by this, but unexpectedly, he was back in town within a month. This whole episode felt off to me. Lily and Nathan tried to start things up again, and things were starting to look up for the couple. That is, until Christmas rolled around. In something straight out of a soap opera, Lily broke up with Nathan on Christmas after finding out some damning information about him. After he broke up with Lily in September, he apparently went and slept with one of his cousins and got her pregnant. His cousin later had a miscarriage, and, to add to that, Nathan revealed that he had both chlamydia and genital herpes. He knew he had these, and yet he purposely did not tell Lily in order to have lots of unprotected sex with her. Lily got herself tested. While she didn't contract chlamydia, she tested positive for genital herpes. As suspected, she was devastated by this and went through a brief period of depression. It quickly became apparent that Nathan was not at all the type of person Lily had thought him to be at first. He was a sexist, a womanizer, a cheat, and a liar. He had sex with multiple women, and just like with Lily, he kept the information about his STDs secret. He even tried to turn all of his friends against Lily, saying that she broke up with him, and even tried to drive apart Lily and Yasmina, the fiancée of one of Nathan's cousins who was now close friends with Lily. Lily didn't stand for this and made sure the truth was known. She talked to Yasmina and her fiancé about it, and they eventually kicked Nathan out of their place. Word began spreading in Nathan's community about his wrongdoings, and even his backup girlfriend broke up with him. It wasn't long before Lily was taking self-defense and gun classes. Nathan knew where she lived and obviously had some weapons training due to being a rookie police officer, a job that he soon lost. She often told me how she was somewhat afraid of him, but mostly she was furious. If he ever tried to hurt her, I'm sure she would have blown his brains out. Anyway, my second and final encounter with Nathan was at the tail end of this drama earlier this year. My first encounter with Nathan had been brief, but afterwards, Lily told me that Nathan had been initially jealous of me due to the fact that I was a close guy friend of Lily's. We've been friends since we were toddlers, and that we had dated back during freshman year of high school. While our first encounter had been brief and under friendly terms, our second encounter was far from that. I had the morning shift at work that day, and I had just ended my shift. It was early in the afternoon, so I was hurrying to my car to get out of the heat. As I walked to my car, I quickly noticed Nathan leaning against his car a few rows away. As you can expect, I was furious upon seeing him, given all the crap he'd caused for my friend. I assumed that he was only waiting for Lily or something. I only chuckled because Lily was on a family vacation in Montana at the time. I decided not to confront him. I was always keen on listening to Lily and giving my 2 cents, but for the most part, I had been successful at staying away from this drama. Suddenly, Nathan turned in my direction and immediately stood up completely. He tapped on his car, and who I assumed was a friend of his stepped out. They began to power walk in my direction. Wasting no time, I jumped in my car, started the ignition, and pulled out of my parking spot. As I did, I heard a loud knock on the back of my car. I looked in the rearview mirror to see Nathan punching the back window in some feeble attempt to stop me. I kept going. I was almost out of the parking lot when I looked in my rearview mirror again to see his car speeding in my direction. I sped out of the parking lot with him right on my tail. He continued to follow me for several streets. There was no way I was heading home with him following. I ended up taking the craziest detour of my life, pulling on and off feeders, driving through parking lots, driving circles in neighborhoods. I did it all. Eventually, after about 25 minutes of driving, I lost him. I drove around for a little while afterwards in order to make sure I had finally lost him. When I got home, I called Lily and told her everything. She thought about calling the police, but before we could decide on whether or not to do that, Lily got a call from Yasmina, who had been spying on Nathan for Lily for quite some time. We learned that Nathan had apparently packed up his stuff from where he was living and taken off. He was gone. To where? I don't know. I heard rumors about him wanting to go to New York City and Mexico, but those are the only possibilities I remember. All that matters is now he's officially out of Lily's life. I'm not sure what would have happened if he had caught me that day. Lily guessed that Nathan might have been trying to hurt me in order to get back at her. I'm glad that I was a good enough driver to lose him. Otherwise, I don't want to think about what he could have done to me. Nathan, I hope Lily and I never meet you again. Thank you for tuning in, and if you enjoy the episode, please like, subscribe, and share. You can also view my other videos by clicking the info tab in the top right corner of your screen. And remember, it's always darker when you open your eyes.